All right, so today we're going deep on The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Oh, yeah, a classic.
It really is. And, it's been so influential for so many people.
It's interesting because he focuses on principles, not just like quick fixes or,
Yeah.
trendy techniques and things like that, but really like the deeper stuff.
And he talks about paradigms, I think, right?
Yeah, paradigms, those mental maps we have.
So can you explain that a little bit more for people who maybe haven't read the book?
Yeah, so it's basically how we see the world, right? And he has that great example in the book of the old woman, young woman illusion,
Oh, yeah.
where some people see a young woman, some people see an old woman, but it's the same picture.
Right.
And it's just based on your perception.
I see. So our paradigms are kind of like our mental filters that shape how we see things.
Exactly. And he says these paradigms can really hold us back if we're not aware of them.
Right.
You know,
That makes sense.
we need to challenge our assumptions and be open to different perspectives.
But how do we shift those paradigms?
Well, he talks about the character ethic versus the personality ethic.
Okay.
The character ethic is about timeless principles like integrity, honesty, fairness,
Yeah.
building that solid
This
foundation.
was more internal,
Exactly.
and the personality ethic is more external.
Yeah, it's more about techniques for manipulating perceptions, quick fixes, projecting an image,
Ah.
rather than building genuine character.
So I guess a personality ethic is kind of like putting on a show almost,
Yeah,
but not really changing who you are underneath.
exactly. And he argues that true effectiveness comes from aligning with those deeper principles.
Right. Those core values.
Exactly.
It makes me think about parenting, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes you get so caught up in like controlling your kid's behavior,
Right.
but you don't focus on those. Like,
Deeper why.
yes, the deeper values.
And he actually talks about a personal story about struggling to teach his daughter to share.
Oh, interesting.
And he realized it wasn't about forcing the behavior, but helping her understand the principle behind it.
Yeah, just telling someone to do something isn't enough.
Right.
You have to like really help them understand why.
Exactly.
Okay, so we need to examine our paradigms.
Yes.
We need to focus on building character.
Yes.
What's the first like practical step we can take?
He would say it's about becoming more proactive.
Okay.
And it's not just about being busy, but taking responsibility for our own lives and choices.
Okay.
He introduces the idea of the circle of concern and the circle of influence.
Ooh. Tell me more.
Yeah, so the circle of concern encompasses everything we worry about,
Right.
things we may have little control over.
Uh-huh.
The circle of influence includes the things we can actually do something about.
Okay.
Proactive people focus their energy on their circle of influence rather than getting stuck in a cycle of worry and reactivity.
So it's about focusing on what we can control.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's so easy to get caught up in like things you can't control.
Oh, absolutely. Like the news or,
Right.
things happening.
Politics, the economy.
Yeah. And it can be so draining.
It can be very draining.
Right.
So how do we expand our circle of influence?
Well, it starts with identifying those areas where you do have agency and choosing to focus your efforts there.
Okay.
So instead of worrying about the economy, think
Right.
about what you can do to improve your own financial situation or
Right.
make a positive impact in your community.
This reminds me of Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust. And
Oh, yeah?
he talked about how even in a concentration camp, he still had the freedom to choose his attitude, his response to his circumstances.
That's such a powerful example.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the heart of Covey's message.
Right. We may not always be able to control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond.
Exactly.
So we've talked about shifting our paradigms, being more proactive.
Mm.
What's the next habit?
Well, he says we need to begin with the end in mind.
Okay.
And this might sound a bit morbid, but he encourages us to imagine our own funeral.
Wow.
What would we want people to say about us?
That is kind of morbid.
It is, but it makes you think.
It does. It makes you think.
What kind of legacy do we want to leave behind?
Yeah. What do we want to be remembered for?
Exactly. And by starting with that clear vision of our desired end, we can make choices in the present that align with that future.
So it's kind of like having a roadmap.
Yeah, like setting a destination in your GPS before you start driving.
Exactly.
You know where you want to go so you can make sure you're heading in the right direction.
So this leads us to creating a personal mission statement, right?
Absolutely.
Like, what's the purpose of my life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he believes that's a powerful tool for guiding our decisions and actions.
Right.
It helps us stay focused on what matters most.
Yeah, I can see how that would be really helpful because sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of reacting to whatever comes up
Right.
instead of being intentional.
It's so easy to get caught up in that.
Yeah.
But by having that mission statement and referring back to it regularly, we can start making choices that are aligned with our values and goals.
So we've covered paradigms proactivity beginning with the end in mind.
Hmm.
What's next?
Well, once you have that destination and you're moving in the right direction, it's important to maintain a sense of balance.
Okay.
That's where the PPC balance comes in.
The PPC balance.
Yes.
What is that?
So imagine you have a goose that lays golden eggs.
Okay, I like this already.
You'd be pretty excited, right?
What?
But what if you got so focused on those golden eggs, those immediate results, that you neglected to care for the goose itself?
That would be foolish.
Right.
The goose would stop laying golden eggs.
Exactly.
You're left with nothing.
And that's essentially what the PPC balance is all about.
Okay.
P stands for production, those desired results.
Mm-hmm.
PC stands for production capability, the asset that produces those results.
Oh, I see.
So the goose is the production capability.
The golden eggs are the
Production.
results.
Yeah.
So we can't just constantly focus on getting those results
Right.
without taking care of the thing that's producing the results,
Exactly.
which is ourself,
Mm.
our health, our skills, our relationships.
Yes. And Covey argues that neglecting our PC, whether it's our physical health or our mental well-being, our relationships, our skills, will eventually lead to diminishing returns.
Yeah, if you keep pushing yourself and you don't take a break, you're going to burn out.
Absolutely.
So this is a good reminder to take a step back and assess how well I'm taking care of my goose.
Exactly.
So what else does Covey have to say about maintaining balance?
Well, speaking of nurturing valuable assets, let's talk about relationships and the concept of the emotional bank account.
The emotional bank account. What is that?
It's such a great metaphor, like a bank account, but instead of money, it's trust and goodwill, positive feelings,
Yeah.
in a relationship. And so we make deposits through acts of kindness, courtesy, honesty, keeping commitments, just like a...
So when we do something nice for someone or, we go out of our way to show we care.
Exactly. That's like making a deposit.
Yeah.
Those deposits build up that reserve, of trust and goodwill.
Right.
But just like with a financial bank account, we can make withdrawals too.
And I'm assuming that would be like breaking promises, being disrespectful.
Yeah, being inconsiderate.
Right.
You got it. And so those actions, they chip away at the trust and goodwill we've built up. And if we keep making withdrawals without enough deposits, we end up overdrawn.
Well,
The relationship that's, strained or even broken.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I'm already thinking about some relationships and it's like, oh, I think I've been making some withdrawals there.
It happens.
It does. So what are some of the specific deposits we can make?
Well, Covey actually outlines 6 major deposits: understanding the individual, attending to the little things, keeping commitments, clarifying expectations, showing personal integrity, and apologizing sincerely when we do make a withdrawal.
Okay. So like understanding the individual, that's about really seeing things from their perspective.
Yeah, empathy, taking the time to understand their needs, their values, their hopes and dreams.
And attending to the little things. I like that.
Yeah, a handwritten note, a thoughtful gift, remembering birthdays or important dates.
Little things go a long way.
They really do. Those small gestures show that you care.
And keeping commitments, I think that one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, be a person of your word.
What about clarifying expectations?
Yeah, that's about being upfront and clear about what you expect from others and what they can expect from you.
Okay.
This avoids misunderstandings and resentments later on. For instance, if you're working on a project together, clearly define roles and responsibilities right from the start.
I can see how that would be helpful because then there's no weirdness or resentment that can build up.
Absolutely.
Okay, showing personal integrity, this walk in the talk, right?
Exactly. Being congruent, aligning your actions with your words and values.
Right.
People can sense when you're not being authentic.
Yeah.
And that erodes trust.
And apologizing sincerely. When you make a withdrawal, it can be tough sometimes.
It can be, but it's so essential for repairing any damage that we've done to the relationship.
Yeah.
And a sincere apology acknowledges the hurt that we've caused.
Right.
And shows our commitment to making things right.
So the emotional bank account is really all about maintaining those strong relationships.
Yeah, building and maintaining.
But Covey goes even further, right?
It does.
He talks about creating something even greater than just the sum of its parts.
Synergy.
Synergy, yes.
That's where things get really exciting.
So tell me about synergy.
So synergy is recognizing that when people with different perspectives and strengths come together, they can create something truly extraordinary.
I like that.
It's like 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, it's more than just like everyone agreeing. It's about really using those different perspectives.
Yeah, valuing differences, embracing those diverse viewpoints, and leveraging them to generate creative solutions.
It reminds me of that story he tells about the classroom where, these students were kind of resistant to collaborating
Oh, yeah.
at first, but then they ended up coming up with some amazing ideas.
Once they really started listening to each other
Yeah,
and valuing each other's perspectives,
I love that story.
it's a powerful example of how transformative synergy can be.
So it doesn't just happen magically.
Right.
It requires, that foundation of trust and understanding,
Hmm.
which I think takes us back to habit 5.
Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yes. So before we can even have synergy, we
Mhm.
need to be good listeners.
We need to master that empathic listening.
But isn't listening just about, listening?
No, it's so much more than that.
Okay.
It's about putting aside our own judgments, biases, and agendas and truly trying to see the world through the other person's eyes.
That's hard.
It is. It takes practice.
Yeah, because I know sometimes I'm like thinking about what I'm going to say while the other person is still talking.
It's so common. We're already formulating that response in our heads.
Right.
But that prevents us from really connecting with the other person and understanding their perspective.
Yeah.
He talks about listening with the intent to understand, not just to reply.
So it's like active listening,
Yeah.
not passive listening.
Exactly. And he outlines several levels of listening, from ignoring to pretending to selective listening, all the way up to empathic listening.
And empathic listening, that's the goal.
That's the gold standard.
How we get there.
Well, he gives some really practical steps,
Okay.
like mirroring content,
What's that?
just repeating back what you've heard to ensure you're understanding correctly.
Okay, so you're just making sure you're on the same page.
Yeah. And then there's rephrasing content, putting what you've heard into your own words
Okay.
to demonstrate you've grasped the meaning,
I like that.
and then reflecting feelings.
Oh, yeah.
That's crucial for connecting on an emotional level.
That's about acknowledging how they're feeling.
Yeah, acknowledging and validating the other person's feelings even if you don't agree with them.
It's so easy to jump into problem-solving mode
Oh, yeah.
when someone's telling you their problems and you're like, oh, here's what you need to do.
Right. We want to fix it.
Yeah.
But sometimes people just need to be heard.
They just want to vent.
Exactly.
Okay, so empathic listening helps us build those stronger relationships,
Absolutely.
which then helps us with synergy.
It lays the groundwork.
So how do we actually create synergy?
Well, he says it's about valuing differences, embracing those diverse perspectives, and leveraging them to generate creative solutions.
Okay.
It's not about compromise or blending. It's about creating something new and innovative that wouldn't have been possible without the unique contributions of each individual.
It's like teamwork on steroids.
Yeah, teamwork, but like elevated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because so often teams just get stuck in groupthink where no one wants to rock the boat.
Absolutely.
So synergy helps break through that.
It does, because when team members feel safe to express their unique perspectives and ideas, you can tap into that wellspring of creativity and innovation.
So synergy is more than just getting along.
It's about leveraging those differences to create something remarkable.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 6 habits being proactive, beginning with the end in mind, putting first things first, thinking win-win, seeking first to understand, and then synergizing.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Mm.
What's the final habit that ties it all together?
It's all about renewal, constantly investing in ourselves, sharpening the saw.
Sharpening the saw.
Yeah.
I like that. What is that?
So think about it. If you keep using a dull saw, it takes more effort.
You get tired.
You get less effective results.
The saw gets stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you take the time to sharpen the blade, the work becomes easier and more productive.
So we are the saw, and we need to sharpen ourselves regularly
Yes.
to stay effective.
Precisely. And he emphasizes 4 dimensions of renewal: physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional.
Okay, so those are the 4 ways we sharpen the saw.
Yes. And he argues that neglecting any one of these dimensions will ultimately diminish our capacity to live a fulfilling and effective life.
So it's all connected.
It's all connected.
What are some practical ways to sharpen the saw?
Okay, so we're back, and we've been talking all about these 7 habits, and I'm really seeing how they all fit together.
Yeah, there's a real synergy between them.
It's not just a random list of tips.
Right. Each one builds on the others,
Okay.
So we've got paradigms proactivity, beginning with the end in mind, prioritizing.
Yeah.
Thinking win-win, seeking first to understand, synergizing.
Uh,
But that all comes back to that last one, sharpen the saw, right?
Absolutely. It's the foundation for everything.
Like you can have the best plan, the clearest vision,
Right.
but if you're not taking care of yourself,
Yeah. If your saw is dull, you're not going to be effective.
that's like trying to run a marathon without training.
Exactly. You're going to burn out.
Yeah. So how do we actually sharpen the saw?
Well, it's about those 4 dimensions, right?
Yes.
Physical, spiritual, mental and social emotional.
Right.
And in each dimension, there are things we can do.
Okay, so for physical, what would be some examples?
Well, taking care of our bodies,
Yeah.
so exercise,
Uh-huh.
finding something you enjoy, making it a regular part of your routine,
Okay.
healthy eating, getting enough sleep.
Oh, sleep. Yeah, that's a big one.
It is so important.
I know I'm guilty of not getting enough sleep,
It happens.
especially when I'm like stressed or busy.
But when we're sleep deprived, we don't make good decisions.
Yes.
Our focus is off. We're more prone to stress.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
So sleep is really an act of self-care.
It is. Okay, so we've got the physical down. What about spiritual?
Yeah, spiritual renewal, that's about connecting with something bigger than ourselves.
Okay.
So that might be through nature, meditation, prayer, engaging with inspiring art or literature.
Right.
It's about reflecting on our values, finding meaning and purpose in life, cultivating gratitude.
I like that. And it ties back to beginning with the end in mind.
It does.
Because, when we're thinking about our values, what matters to us, it gets us more purpose.
Exactly. And when we're grounded in those values, we're less likely to get swept away by, the everyday chaos.
Right. We have that anchor.
Exactly. Okay, so what about mental renewal?
Yeah. How do we sharpen our minds?
Keep our minds engaged, expanding our knowledge.
Okay.
So reading books, articles on topics that interest you,
Huh?
taking courses to learn new skills, having thought-provoking conversations.
It's about being a lifelong learner.
Yes. Always learning, always growing.
Because I think sometimes we just assume we know enough.
Right.
But there's always more to learn.
Always.
And don't forget about playfulness.
Oh, yes. Play is so important.
Doing things you enjoy that challenge you in new ways.
It's like learning a musical instrument, playing games, exploring creative hobbies.
Right.
It's good for your mental agility.
Okay, so we've covered physical, spiritual, mental. What about social, emotional?
That's all about nurturing our relationships,
Yeah.
practicing empathy, contributing to something greater than ourselves.
Okay.
So, spending time with loved ones, volunteering in your community, offering a kind word to someone who needs it.
Just being there for people.
Yeah, and recognizing that we're all connected.
Right, and that goes back to thinking win-win and seeking first to understand and synergy.
It's all interconnected.
It really is. Wow, this has been such a great conversation.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I feel like I'm walking away with so many great insights.
And remember, it's not about mastering all 7 habits overnight.
Right.
It's a journey. Focus on one habit that resonates with you and start there.
Small steps.
Small steps lead to big changes.
Any final thoughts?
I would just encourage our listeners to keep exploring Covey's work and to see these habits as guiding principles,
Yeah.
not rigid rules,
Adapt them to your own life.
Exactly. It's a personal journey.
Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listener, the power to live a more effective and fulfilling life is within your grasp.
It is.
Start sharpening your saw today.